Welcome to Difficult Conversation Africa broadcast. I present to you the host, Yinka Olaito.
Ballot, border, and belonging in South Africa. Migration is not something that is new in Africa or that is very alien within the South African environment. The issue of migration is something that South Africa used to be a home for migrants and refugees who are seeking economic opportunity. But migration issue has become very volatile and very hostile discussion in the last 2 months with regards to match and all of them. Following up on our last discussion about South Africa immigration tension, we've gotten a lot of feedback, especially from South Africans, and we are so glad that South Africans actually came strongly, giving their perspective and all of that to our last episode. It will be good for our viewers to go back to our last episode and check. Because of some of the questions that have been raised, Difficult Conversation Africa will be following up in this edition with some of the issues that are raised. And today, we will be looking at South Africa politics, media, and migration debates. Who is losing, who is winning? But before we begin this topic, I want us to first of all look at one issue. And that is the issue that in comparing South African and Nigerian in this issue, I need to give it to South Africa. They have spoken loudly. They've come out en masse. Yes, there could be function of manipulation, there could be issue of funding and all of that. I want to raise some of the things that I want to give to South African in these migration match issues. Number one, the young people, especially of South Africa, have come out in one voice. They remain divisive and determined, even though we must acknowledge that they could do it better with more civil and following the law than the way they have been doing it. So I must say that they've come out with one voice. They are out to say this is what we want in our country. This is something that is very important for the young population of Africa, where we have youth as a major population. In a country where the youth is docile and cannot speak for their future, that's dangerous. And I think Nigeria young people need to learn from that, speaking with one voice. Number two, in terms of nationality and values, we have seen South African police following these young people, whether directly or indirectly. They've actually supported them. There's no been killing. They've not killed any of their young people. When we compare to Nigeria and SARS, how many of Nigeria young people were wasted because of demanding for their rights? In terms of funding, yes, there are quite a lot of arguments and debates whether it is true that Match is being funded by anybody, but that's not important. The third thing that I'd like to give to government of South Africa, the young people of South Africa, is the fact that they've come out strongly, whether because of election that is coming. Some people have said that there are undertones of election coming and all of that, that politicians are involved in some of these things. But what I've seen is that South African government had remained resolute in defending whatever that have been said. I've been following this event for not less than 2-3 weeks. What I've seen from the two ministers from the presidency that have spoken, Minister of Justice and Minister from the presidency, they've remained resolute, and they are trying to paint their picture of the perception of what they want. They are saying that they are following the demand of South Africans. And this is kudos to them, irrespective of the fact that I may have reservation as a journalist against some of the things that they said. They remain resolute to say that whatever they are doing, one of them, in fact, there was a question that was asked recently, maybe yesterday or day before yesterday, where Nigerians will say, shouldn't they think that they should retract and apologize on that? And they said they are not going to retract that thing. The question is, how many of Nigerian government and policymakers are actually speaking out? How many are really defending the name and the integrity of the country despite all? This is something that we need to learn from South Africa. Yes, we know that this is about politics. We know that the undertone. I must commend leaders, strong leaders of South Africans, people like former President Thabo Mbeki, who are speaking truth to the power, who are saying that beyond this camouflage of immigration and anti-whatever, is economic depravity and unemployment that is raging. He had actually compared that between 1994 and 2008, the economic situation of South Africans were growing. And then from 2009 down to now, it has been going down. And therefore, people are frustrated and all of that. But that's not the issue of what we're saying here. Today, we're looking at South Africa politics, media, and migration debates. Like I have said, it is very clear that South African leadership or government are actually speaking and are actually trying to follow the common balance or to be politically correct because election is coming. But who will blame them? They have made some important point with regards to the fact that if every other African country, especially Nigeria that they are pointing to, if they have done their country very well, there will be no need for anybody running around for their country. And that enough is enough. They can't continue to carry the burden of every other countries, every African country in the name of Ubuntu, which is very good. Nobody is fighting that. But the fact is, despite all these, what we call a plus for them, that they are speaking in one voice and they are backing their people, we need also to think about diplomacy, which is really important for me. You will notice, I have, based on my observation, we will notice that most of the male ministers in the presidency had refused to make a lot strong and accusatory statements in the public. They are able to get interview and do interview in a manner that suggests that they understand democracy, they understand diplomacy and all of that. For a journalist to ask a normal question, shouldn't you apologize for for using for clapping a country or collapsing a country nationality into just one and call them draw barons and all of that? Beyond now, there's always what we call diplomacy. There's a way to talk as a minister. According to her, she was saying that she was not respected, and therefore no South African journalist will actually be seen as interjecting a minister and all of that. That is good. But I think that to balance it, she was just asking, not because I'm in Nigeria, or maybe because, like Malema had once said, that when you see an African Nigeria, they want to ask questions. How many of how many of our ministers in South Africa actually watch press briefing with Donald Trump or as president of the United States? You see, journalists were trained to ask difficult questions, hard questions from the leaders. It is not because of disrespect. It's because they want to get into the fact of things, not just because they wanted to please anybody. But let's just leave that for today. What we're trying to say is this. The issue of migration, it has been there in Africa, not only in Africa. It happened in Nigeria, it happened in Ghana and all of that. But post that migration story and narrative, what will happen? Some of the statements, we must remember that today we are no longer in the age where anything can go away just like that. Internet never forget. And I think that while we are trying to dance to the tunes of the populace, we must also begin to look at the implication of what we're saying, and what we're saying damage the relationship that we have built over the years. I believe that, like every other issue, this migration issue will go down the drain in the next 2-3 years. It will go down the drain. But after that, the words spoken by a leader will remain, and people will quote you. But it's not important to you. If it is not important to these two ministers, that's okay, that's fine. We are not arguing with them. But we want to see that. We want to say, all right, Just note that journalists are trained to ask hard questions. It's not a matter of disrespect. And she raised her hand, but that's not what we're going to do. One of the questions I'm bound to ask, and this is being a journalist, is why has issue of migration debate become so volatile and on the front burner, especially as most of African countries and South Africa are moving towards election year. Why has migration debate become so hot indeed? Does that mean that this migration issue did not exist before? Or it is of a particular interest to a section of the media, a section of the political class to begin to inject some of the things that are not essential, and to then to begin to dance to the populace of to the demand of the society. Leadership is not just to dance to why it is important to follow whatever the society need and to listen to the instruction or to the demand of the led and the governed. And like the minister said, they are not accountable to any other country. They are accountable majorly to their citizens. And they are to respect the law of South Africa. I quite appreciate that. And that is what any reasonable leader would do. The question is, why has issue of migration debate become so volatile and so hot today in Africa, not only in South Africa? If you listen to other commentary by other leaders, a minister in Kenya had said, we celebrate what South Africans are doing. We celebrate what the government of South Africa are doing. Nobody wants a country where non-documented people are responsible or are damaging quite a lot of things for the real resident whose money are being used. But the fact is, we need to do it legally. We need to think about the future. You don't want to break a continent because election is coming. We want a continent where we are bound together, a continent that speaks with one voice. I, as an individual and as a journalist, I celebrate South African leadership for what you are doing. It is very normal. But the fact also remains, and I must caution, caution, and caution is very important. I remember some of the feedback we got from the last episode, especially from majority of those comments came from South African residents, is the fact that let everybody go and work on their economy and ensure that their citizens are safe in their country, not in another country, not or rushing into another country. This is very important. And for me, that is a very, very critical points that we need to make for every African countries and leaders to ensure that we have and we do everything to maintain an economy that allows everybody to prosper and to function, to reduce corruption to the barest minimum. But when you look at it, we look at issue of migration, even in South Africa, data reveal that the issue of migration that has become a front burner today does not happen without some of the officials within the border and whatever line. So corruption is everywhere. The issue of corruption, African leaders and African youth need to begin to address that as important for now. That as let's deal with corruption at every level. Systemic corruption is common. We're not blaming South African people for speaking out now. And maybe it is high time they speak out against some of these corrupt officials within their immigration policy ecosystem, where they have allowed a lot of things to happen. But the fact also remains that judges should be merged with mercy and with a lot of diplomacy. Because over time, you will finish the fight. But what we have spoken, the damage we have done with our word, may never go away easily. But that does not mean that South African ministers should not. But I'm only saying that let's call for caution in the use of our words, in the use of our languages, in the way we parade ourselves. Leadership is not about arrogance. Leadership is about getting views, and we must be open to the perspective of others. on this platform, we are open. We want to hear the perspective of more of South African, and we also encourage you to please give us back. For me, as an individual and as a journalist, my point is we cannot throw away the baby with the bathwater. There are issues that are important to governance in South Africa or Africa at large that we must all address. That's really important. We must be ready to address it. The young people of South Africa must say no to some of the corruption and non-documented immigrant. But the way it is going, like we said, South Africa politics, media, and migration debate. I have also seen cases and videos where some South Africans are said that because they do not belong to Zulu, they've been mistaken for Nigeria. If we're going to look back at history, we will remember also that one of the foremost South African musicians, Lucky Dube, was unalive because they thought he was a Nigerian. What a great loss to Africa for such kind of a mind to have been lost because of issue of migration, issue of tribalism, issue of not getting. See, my appeal to South African, especially young people, is that migration issue is a sensitive issue. And yes, it can lead to a lot of things. But the fact remains that the way it is going, if you are not very careful, when all the documented or non-documented migrants are left, there may be a possibility, I'm not saying it's going to happen, there may be a possibility also that this thing will begin, it will get to a point where they say hen begin to hit each other's intestine, where issue of race, issue of religion will become paramount, and it will heat up the system more than what we think. So the first question that I'm asking, and I've said, is, have we thought about would there be a politics associated with this migration issue? Because this is not the first time migration issue is coming up. Yes, the country has unequivocally spoken against Nigeria. And I must agree that yes, maybe, and it is possible, and just not even maybe, the possibility is there that some Nigerians have abused their privileges, they have abused the opportunity that South Africa gave to them. I must also acknowledge that some of our professors, I have a close friend in South Africa who had moved from South Africa. He talked about some of the privileges that they were given as academics, and that he wouldn't have enjoyed that kind of privileges and opportunities if he had been within Nigeria's system. So I must give it to South Africans for what they have done. But you can't throw away the baby with the bathwater. You will lose all the credibility, the reputation, and all that you have garnered over the years. So this is why I'm saying that let's do away with politics. The other question is this: what is the role of media in this? Media is expected to play a vital role in proper education of the society. Social media, unfortunately, had infiltrated and now destroyed more because a lot of misinformation, a lot of fake news are being propelled against different nations across Africa. What is South African media doing about this? Or are we also afraid that we might likely, or that the media ecosystem may likely lose if they say the truth? I'm not saying South African media are not saying the truth. I'm only saying that. What's the role of South African media in ensuring that right narrative is pushed? Who is monitoring what? Who is pushing out what? I must acknowledge that I have read and I've followed some media houses in South Africa. They are quite eloquent. They are very forthright. And won't mention media houses, but I know quite a lot of people there because I have friends who are journalists in South Africa who are doing really great work, who are balancing the issue. And I hope that I won't be accused of not balancing the issue. We will realize that as we start, I've actually stated some of the vital and positive point that I have seen that have emerged from this South African migration and politics debate for me. I've seen the commitment of South Africa. I've seen the determination of South African government to remain solid and to stay behind their people, which is missing in most of the African countries. I've also seen cases where state actors like police had not been used to kill or to waste life of the young people who are protesting, despite the fact that some of the leaders within the South African governance had a lot of reservation, but state actors like police had not been used, unlike what will happen in some other countries, particularly when we compare with NSAS, where the young people are demanding for a better country, an environment that allow everybody to thrive. The question is, why don't we think? Are there any hand in this that shows that that politics and perception may be there? The role of politicians in infiltrating or in escalating the migration debate. Like I have said, I've listened to some of the presidency, a minister from this presidency, a minister of justice. And I will say that, of a truth, they are doing their job. They are protecting the law as they are assigned. And according to one of them, they are doing their law. They are doing what is expected to be done. But the fact also remains that in the choice of your word as leaders, you can, or in a way, you may be infiltrating or you may be exploding. You may be imploding the system by your actions and by your body languages. I've also seen, because I've tried to see the ANC Secretary General, I've looked at what he said and some of the things he has shared. I've seen a man that is balanced. I've seen a man who knows what to say and when to say it. And not because he's not a South African. He's a committed South African person. And he has been a person, a party person for a long time. So people like him need to model for other government leaders, need to model to them and tell them, look, as much as we have things to say and what to say, how we say it, and to whom we say it, they are very important things. Diplomacy will remain something that need to be taught and need to be learned when it comes to speaking, particularly as government spokesperson. These are some of the issues. And majorly, and lastly, maybe if I will have another one point to the issue, is what is influencing some of these migration debates? Election. The young people need to understand that election will come and go. And unfortunately, one of the leaders of this organization, either whatever you call it, is already unalive. And this is something that is painful to everybody. When you lose your life, what happens? Why don't you think about the life that are involved? Think about that. I wept when I saw that he was unalive. And it's possibly by a close person. These are some of the issues that we need to think about as we begin to make our move. Then, how are South African media reported migration? That's the question I've asked about South African media. How have they reported it? Biased, unbiased, open, or straightforward? These are some of the questions that I need to ask. As I conclude, I want to say that once again, I celebrate the determination of South African young people to see that and to make that call that they need a saner environment where that is equal for everybody. I celebrate their decision. I celebrate their determination. I celebrate their commitment. In a way, I also celebrate the South African police that they have not wasted life, even though we expected that they could do more by protecting the life of other immigrants that are residing within their country. Though the minister has said their first commitment is to their resident. As we close, young people of South Africa, I make an appeal. Let's be sure that the way we are going and the point at which we are going and at the rate at which we are driving this migration debate is something that we will all live to be happy about and to actually be proud of in the next 20, 30 years. Africa must speak with one voice. Every country within Africa must ensure that they work on their economy and their leadership is providing an enablement where nobody has to run away. from their country. And this my appeal to Nigeria government. Let's make Nigeria a safe place for the young people so that nobody need to run away. Until the next episode, please, I also welcome South Africa. Please give us your because I know you are the major people who shared your opinion, and those opinions are respected. Thank you for those comments. We also need more. The fact is, as we go, let's begin to think what the future holds with all our attitude. See you in the next edition. Please don't forget to give us your feedback either through all our social media platforms or maybe through info at Difficult Conversation Africa. See you in the next edition, and thank you. My name is Inka Laito.
Thank you for listening to this episode. For inquiry, please send an email to info@difficultconversationafrica.org. Telephone 0809 591. Please follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Difficult Conversation Africa. See you soon.